Ladies and gentlemen, from the Gainsight Partner Team, please welcome Tim Hogue.
All right. Seems like we keep getting a bigger crowd each time, so glad everyone's rolling in. For our next session, we're going to talk about customer success for the second time. So all of these leaders have started a customer success team at one company and have brought it to another. Now, not all the time, sometimes doing something a second time isn't always the best. Anchorman 2 wasn't great. Bungee jumping again is actually just as hard as the first time. But in a business context, you can learn from a lot of your mistakes and implement some changes in your second company. And these three women have done that. So first I'm going to introduce Rachel Orston. She's the CEO of User IQ, having joined about 3 months ago. And before User IQ, she actually brought customer success to Silverpop, which was later acquired by IBM. And at IBM, she led the customer success efforts for IBM Cloud and brought about 50 IBMers to Pulse last year. Next is Jennifer Dearman, who is one of the panelists. She is the Vice President of Customer Success at Kronos, which is a... So that's why the crowd gets a little bit bigger. Okay, all right. So she is about one of 65 Kronites at Pulse this year. Yep. And so she joined about 6 months ago to build the customer success strategy and organization across Kronos. And as Kronos is shifting to the cloud, CS is a huge strategic initiative across the company. And prior to Kronos, Jennifer built the customer success program at Red Hat. And finally, I want to introduce Catherine. So Catherine is a thought leader and innovator of customer success with over 20 years of experience and a diverse list of small businesses to Fortune 500 customers. She's published a number of blogs and white papers and is one of the top 50 influencers to follow in customer success. And she is currently the Global Vice President of Customer Success and responsible for the experiencing success of all of Oracle Marketing Cloud customers. So without further ado, want to welcome the three women to the stage, Jennifer, Catherine, and Rachel.
Hello. How's everyone doing? Good. I am so excited for this session. We've had so much fun prepping for this session because we've been comparing lots of notes, a lot of lessons learned over the last few years. So
this is like a proper coffee moment.
I know.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It is. All right, well, let's get to it. So I think Tim mentioned, please send in Q&A because we will do some great Q&A at the end and look forward to getting your questions. As you know, this is Customer Success Part 2. And I think there's been a lot of conversation throughout the sessions today around, and even Nick, I think, kicked it off around where we've come with customer success, right? Talking about the 90s and today. So what have you guys seen? How has customer success evolved for both of you? Catherine, I'll start with you.
Sure. Gosh, I think about 10 years ago, and when I first started in customer success with a company called Jigsaw that later became a part of Salesforce, that was the year that the iPhone launched. I mean, can you believe that? 10 years, and so much has happened since then in technology, but certainly that's impacted our customers and how we think about success. 10 years ago, it was all about helping sales scale so they could focus on selling that new customer, was thinking about, gosh, this thing called cloud, it's easier to implement and onboard a customer, but it's easy for a customer to leave. Well, sales isn't necessarily chartered with keeping a customer, neither is support. So how do we scale that, which is then the birth of customer success? So if I flash forward now, right, lots of pieces in the middle, the things that I think about are, when we got started, I don't think we even thought about the plan that we needed to build around how we actually transform a team and scale a team. And now, lessons learned, I know there's some images up on the screen that we're sharing with you. What we want to think about is, what is that actual plan that we're putting forward? I mean, I think a lot of us think about hiring that first CSM and then jumping to what we have to do operationally and then jumping to systems and tools. But now it's more about how do we actually transform an organization and what's that plan we have to have in place. And we think a lot about that, not just within my organization. We also talk to our customers about the fact that for any transformation to be successful, customer success teams are no different. First and foremost is that plan you have. We think about it around discovery. What are we even looking into in terms of what we want to do with our customer success organization, and how do we actually build alignment around the organization? There's a great stat that's out there, an important one, which says that 90% of any plan will fail if you do not have an engaged executive. So alignment across all stakeholders is super important, and then going into how we actually integrate around each of the program components, and then how do we even sustain it, rinse, repeat. I mean, there's a lot that we've learned around even having a plan in place.
Right, even just having a plan for the plan.
Yeah, exactly.
How often, and I want to get Jennifer's perspective, but putting this together, right? It looks so nice on a slide. But it's a lot of work, right? Putting those pieces together. How often do you iterate on this? How often do you, really look at this slide and say, or obviously there's a lot more detail behind it, but where are we in these phases, and really step back and kind of say, where are we hitting it? Where are we not?
Yeah, that is an important question, because I would say just planning the plan is so important, and even having a realistic time frame around what's possible. I mean, I think of our journey that we're on at Oracle Marketing Cloud. We're combining 5 companies that were acquired companies that form the Oracle Marketing Cloud into one customer success organization. That isn't just a one-year thing. It is about stakeholder alignment, even at the Mark Hurd level. This is going to be a 3-year transformation journey, and getting buy-in that it's going to take that long, because you really want to understand discovery first, talk to customers, bring the customer into the center of how you're going to design your organization. That takes time. Yeah. You don't just do that with one customer conversation. And then that alignment can take some time too, to make certain that you're covering off on all the key stakeholders. And when you think about transforming organizations that came from different success orgs, even having your leaders buy into this new vision, we've spent a lot of time even defining the purpose of what we're here to do before we jump to the people we need to hire, or perhaps even train differently than we did before. And then before you even get to that, then integration, how do you actually operationalize it? You start unpacking that. Yeah. Having that plan and working each of those components can take some weeks and months to do properly.
Yeah, it's good to invest the time though.
Yeah, it is.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Jennifer. So I love the clapping for Jennifer when she wasn't even here. When we were still about, I said, oh, look at all the Kronos folks clapping for you here.
That's what happens when you bring that many groupies with you.
I love it. All right, so thank you. I know. All right, so you guys are obviously going through a shift yourself, and I think it would be great for the audience to hear kind of your story and how, in this broader evolution of customer success, how it's evolved for you, how you're evolving it at Kronos.
Yeah, I want to touch on Catherine's point too. I feel like I've been in customer success my entire career. I started out in the consulting world, and over the number of years that I will not mention here, it's grown into this thing that we are now calling customer success. So, it's a profession, it's a career path, it's a track to the C-suite, and that's really exciting. What's happening at Kronos is a major shift. So we are in the process of making this shift from an on-premise, 40-year-old software company to the cloud. And when our executives made that decision to make that move, they knew that it was not just, well, let's just put a customer success team in place and we'll start putting some product in the cloud, and there we go, we're a cloud company. We did a full-on transformation of the organization from what the customer experience was, modernizing our back offices and kind of a rip and replace and updating all of that, helping our employees to understand what it meant to be a customer-first organization, modernizing our products, of course, into the cloud, and then, of course, this little thing called customer success. So the whole company is going through this shift to transform to the cloud.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. I mean, it's and I know you're pretty new at Kronos, really bringing that over from Red Hat, which is really exciting.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the things we talked about as another interesting thing we wanted to talk was, we've been to other, customer, this is not our, also, we're talking about part 2. This is not our first customer success conference. Bringing our teams in the past are here. And we were thinking, what are some of the things that you've learned in past conferences, Pulse and others, that, that are really helpful in putting into a plan? What's kind of best practices, tips for people that are obviously here? Maybe it's your first Pulse. How do you kind of take all this information that's coming from a conference like this and really put it into a plan? So Jennifer, I'll start with you.
Yeah. There is a lot of content at Pulse. There's definitely no shortage of information. You will likely leave here very overwhelmed with where to start. But my advice to you is really to just get started, right? Start to collate the information, start to put a plan together. In the last 6 months, this is how we've been preparing to launch, and we actually just launched with all these awesome Cronites in the room. We launched our program 2 weeks ago, so we're super excited about that, but we've been really busy. So we started with a mission, of course, defining what the mission is for our organization. And when I talk about mission, I don't just mean the mission for my team, I mean Kronos's customer success mission. And it's built in a way that all of the functional areas in the company can align to that mission. I reorged my organization actually to better align with sales and services so that we could partner in a way that we weren't able to partner before. And that alignment is really critical. We built a maturity model, and I'll touch on that in just a minute. But the idea there is that, as Catherine said, it's not a one and done. This is an ever-evolving program, and you need a plan or a path to mature the model. We segmented our customers just like everyone else goes through that exercise, built an engagement model that fits across all of our customer segments because we believe we should invest in the success of all of our customers, not just the biggest ones. We've built tools and other technologies to support our CSMs to deliver all of this awesomeness that we've developed in the program. We've built collateral, a digital marketing strategy, reporting for our customers that they haven't had before. So a lot goes into getting a program off the ground, and I don't mean to frighten everyone,
Right.
but this is foundational for us, right? It will continue to grow and evolve from here.
Well, I think it's helpful for folks in the audience here. Kronos is a large company, and you're building the foundation, right? And I think it's interesting. So you just launched. So if you don't mind me asking, how long did it take? I mean, and because patience is a big part of the process. It's not overnight, right?
Yeah, it took us 6 months of really heads down planning, figuring out what we wanted it to look like, and
Did you go into it knowing it was going to be 6 months?
Pardon me?
Did you go into it thinking it was going to be 6 months?
Well, we picked a date, and then we backed into that date. So we knew we wanted to
Like a good CS leader.
We knew we wanted to launch at our mid-year sales meetings
Yeah.
because we had a captive audience of the sales organization. So we backed up from there and got it done.
Great. Catherine, how about you?
I think that, to your point, there's so much knowledge and there's so many things I think you would leave a Pulse or any event around customer success and want to do. And I think it's also knowing your organization, knowing your team, and the pace in which you can consume change. And so this, certainly goes to the plan that I was talking about a moment ago.
Oh, yeah.
But when I think about how we've taken a lot of the components, because think about the life cycle of what a customer experiences with your organization. You can think of almost every moment of that's really important onboarding, that's really important managing risk, that's really important how we think about advocacy. You think about all those pieces, there are a lot to do and do right and do well. And what we have done, and I think this is also lessons of the road, is thinking about how much can we actually impact change. And given the size of our team, much larger, we are definitely realistic around what we can have over 150, 200 people do and do well versus when I've managed smaller teams where it's just a few people.
Right.
And so with that in mind, we've centered ourselves around, well, what's most critical to the business? It could be, let's really take care of the revenue. Let's make certain that we've nailed all of the programs that are around driving renewals and expansion, partnering with sales, renewals teams, making certain we take care of that. That was for us year one, focusing on that. Understand everything that other leaders are doing, best in class. Let's make sure we're executing on that. And then second would be risk. How do we actually ensure that we are staying ahead of at-risk renewals? Well, let's make certain we've got great at-risk programs, managing critical accounts, red accounts, doing that well. And then now I would say we're at a point where we can actually look at the relationship piece of making certain that we're nailing every opportunity to talk to our customers. But if we tried to do all of that all at once, we wouldn't have done any of them well.
Yeah, that's good. A couple of interesting things, right? Focus, be very clear, be mission-based, back into the mission, start. I forwarded through a couple of slides, and I know folks will download this afterwards. The maturity model is really interesting. How do you look at that over time and evolve that? I thought it was great, so some interesting insights. You know, so as customer success has grown, we've talked about a lot of the planning, managing this broader discipline. And this was, I think, a good conversation we had earlier. Do you think it's become more siloed as a result? Like, as it's grown, the connections between, and Nick talked about this a little bit, the connections between your organization and others, whether it's product or sales, or how has those dynamics evolved?
I think we have to fight for it not to become siloed, and I think that's actually the role of what I'm excited to see the profession really grow and evolve to. I think part of this could be where the organization sits. I think we have to challenge ourselves around, where is the proper seat at the table for customer success? And if we are sitting side by side with our CEOs or general managers and helping be that voice of the customer, understanding all the different mirrors and we need to reflect back around the organization, whether it's sales, marketing, product. We've got the best vantage point to ensure that we've got product market fit, that we have great messaging alignment across marketing, ensuring that our support organization's delivering the best experience possible. I think we are the silo breakers, meaning that we are the ones that actually can help break that down. But I think things can become siloed if we're not sitting at the table.
Yeah, and keeping that seat at the table is really important. Jennifer, I was just about to go to your slide. I know you've got a really important perspective on this, so I wanted to stop because you've got some interesting thoughts on now that you've launched this program. To Catherine's point, how does this build a seat for you guys, at the table, or as Nick likes to say, making sure you're the quarterback?
Right. I think there was more of a tendency to be siloed in the past because customer success tended to get buried in support or sales or services or even product. And when that happens, the customer success team takes on the metrics and goals of those organizations as opposed to what they're truly measured or what they should be focusing on, right? And that's the success of the customer. So I think, as success starts to become its own functional area and have that alignment and seat at the table, we're starting to see that trend of the silos breaking down. When we think about customer success at Kronos, again, it's for the company, right? Not just for my team. Our whole model starts with the customer at the center, and it's all focused on value across all of the parts of the organization. So the sales team is focused on identifying the value that the customer is after at the very beginning, right? And once they've got that identified, it's the services and education team that's there to deliver smart value fast and get them the right training and make sure that they're taking advantage, getting to that first time to value. Our customer experience team has got that Kronos community up with that always-on content that our customers can take advantage of. Our product team is focused on delivering value-based features and functionality that are tied to business outcomes for our customers. Our support team's value proposition is minimizing business interruption, right? So if there's a technical problem with our product, minimize the business interruption for our customers. And then it's the customer success team that's working across all of these teams advocating for the customer. So this is, when we think about customer success at Kronos, it's, we are a seat at the table working across all of these organizations, advocating for our customers, but all of the other parts of the organization are focused on their responsibility for the success of the customer too.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting too to see a lot of folks from other disciplines at the conference too. I mean, I think you can feel some of that shift too as you're seeing other roles, other parts of the organization, even here at Pulse today. I think that's interesting.
That's good.
And so obviously we talked about, your different organizations. Is this a framework that, we talked about, having that seat at the table? Is this broadly shared? Is this very visible? Do you feel like everybody kind of looks at this and says, oh yeah, I understand this?
It is, but I would say it's something that I know my strategy team is here, and we talk about making certain we share this all the time. I mean, repetition is key. We actually started, when we talked a moment ago about our plan for how we're going to transform the organization, this actually served as a critical alignment tool across sales, services, our support organization, which was a part of our success framework, our business development, our partner ecosystem. I mean, really every touch point of who was actually facing our customer was a part of understanding what our model, what our framework needs to deliver, but it really started with the purpose of what customer success is. And I think one of the lessons that I certainly learned the hard way was not having alignment across all these different stakeholders over what we all know and expect the CSM to do. When certainly I've led other organizations, I think we've had a charter and a mission of what we want to hire to and what we believe that role needs to be. But what I found is unless you have alignment with your CEO and also your critical stakeholders around what this role needs to be, as you start working with other leaders, they start to kind of morph your team to be what they think it needs to be. I'm like, well, that's not exactly what the CSM team needs to do. So this is so important to have this alignment. It started with us defining what the purpose of CSM, what that customer success manager is and what we're chartered to do. And that really drove everything. We actually presented the purpose cross-functionally at our executive team meeting, got buy-in before we even developed any of the other pieces around people, programs, or platform.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I love the simplicity of this, just kind of laying it out, having that visible.
Yeah.
So all of this is great until you get into the thick of it, and then data becomes kind of front and center as you try to get to truth and kind of shared understanding and alignment, right? You want to get to the data side of the story. So let's talk data challenges, because the reality is there's a lot of data challenges in customer success always in terms of getting that alignment with other stakeholders. So I'm interested to know. Sorry, I didn't mean to go to another question. What are some of the ways you guys have addressed data as a constant challenge within the organization? Catherine,
Sure. I think we were even talking about this before the session. Has it gotten easier or has it gotten harder around data? And I would say on the one hand, there's definitely a lot more we have available to us to manage data, but there's a lot more to manage. And I think part of this challenge is really understanding what is critical and what you need to get access to in order to best manage your customer. What data matters most, because some of it is super important and some of it's interesting. And we want to focus in on what is really important to drive success, adoption, retention, advocacy. It's really understanding what data matters most. And then it's the democratization of the data as well. It's interesting, we talk about data challenges with our marketers, with our customers, and it's an interesting discussion around who owns the data, maybe a similar discussion around who owns the customer. I think it's easy to debate that because in some cases you have data that's really held tight within certain parts of our organization, and to really extract the value out of that, it needs to be democratized. It needs to be actually leveraged by the different business units to get intelligence, to leverage it, to have the best customer experience possible. But then also to have governance around how we would actually give back and augment that data, so that again, when I'm talking to a customer and we're having an important business meeting around their goals and what they're trying to accomplish, it certainly doesn't help anybody across the organization if we can't get that information back in and then feed that back to support organization or certainly our services organization or sales. And so data challenges are ones that we just have to really know are there, invest in the right structure, governance, and in many ways even resources to make certain we're capitalizing on this most important asset.
I think resources are key,
Yeah.
and that's probably one of the most hence now we have a customer success operations
Right,
role.
that's right. That's
Jennifer, that'd be a good thing, because you and I talked about in the past how that was a real critical piece of your organizational structure.
Yeah, big lesson learned for me. And just on the data piece, I think you have to make sure you don't let the data challenges limit the program. Get started, right? Go after the data that you know you can get. Start putting a story together around the customer, and believe me, the other data will come, right? As our executives start to see the value of the information that we're putting together and the customer intelligence that we are, as CSMs, are able to bring to the organization, that data channel is going to open up and become easier to get at the data. From a success ops standpoint, I'm pretty passionate about success ops because it was a big lessons learned for me previously. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make is underfunding your success ops team, because they are really the backbone of the program. They are responsible for building all of the capabilities that the CSMs are going to be delivering to our customers. And so when you underfund in that area, you might be able to get an initial program off the ground, but you won't be able to iterate it, and you won't be able to grow that program and make it better and bring more value to your customer. So for me, big lesson learned is invest early in the ops team, and for my organization, ops includes the enablement team. Those are the folks that are building all of the plays and the processes. The training team that's responsible for training not only my organization, but people outside of our organization within the company. Our technology team that's responsible for building the tools that our CSMs are using, and then our analytics team that's building all of the dashboards and metrics and everything that we need internally and that we're sharing with our customers. So invest early, invest often in the Success Ops team.
That's great.
Well, one of the big lessons learned for me, as feeds a little bit into the next question, was overloading our CSMs with so much data that I think they were spending more time in the data than with customers, right? And when you have that situation, that's a problem, right?
Right.
So to me, that's a really clear, ROI to start really building out that operational infrastructure. Although, I will say with the growth of customer success and where the discipline is now, I think that the profile or even what you look for in CSMs have changed, right? There's a lot more dynamics. There's data. You've got to be comfortable with data, looking at data. Obviously, the customer-facing challenges are still there. So as this discipline has matured, what do you look for as you're building out your CSM team? What are some of the characteristics of how has the profile, I should say, of a CSM evolved for you over the years? Jennifer, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think that it's sort of stayed the same in terms of needing someone who is a good listener, consultative, communicates well, is laser focused on customer happiness. Profiles that we look for when we're hiring are certainly out of the consulting organization, sales, interestingly teachers, because a teacher profile fits that someone who's empathetic and cares about their children or customers. I think what's really important when you're looking at talent for CSMs is not only hiring them but retaining them as well. And to retain good talent, you need to have a program first of all, because they need to have something.
They need a structure to be successful.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, which is a lot what we talked about.
And secondly, you have to invest in their professional development, right? So if you're just retitling someone and calling them a CSM and saying, go forth and be one, you're likely not going to be real successful with those folks. You need to train them on the program, what customer success is all about, and the soft skills that are needed to be, a good CSM, like influencing without authority, one of my favorites, right? We're in a position to influence without authority, that's for sure. Negotiating skills, communication, presentation skills, all of those soft skills are really important to round out your CSM talent.
Yeah, I think you've raised a really great point about employee success, and I think that's certainly a lessons learned piece as well. I know I've told my team this, and it's something that I certainly am passionate about, which is we can't have customer success without employee success. And I think about all the things that we know how to actually manage a customer and have an amazing customer experience. We are in the best place and position to have an amazing employee experience and have very successful employees. We apply those same skills to help our employees be successful. So if we think about those programs we would have in place for our customers, I would challenge all of us to think about what pieces are missing from our employees' journey. Are we treating our employees the same way we would our customers? I mean, we actually did this challenge, and one of the things we recognized is that we are actually treating our critical customers and our red customers almost higher than our critical people. And we actually kicked off a critical people call. And as part of our rigor is making certain that we know who are most, obviously our whole team is critical, but let's take a look at the folks that we have to get ahead of, because I'm sure all of us in the room know that talent and hiring people is just so hard. We all are competing for a lot of the same people. And when we think about keeping our best people engaged, no different than engaging our customers, how do we get ahead of it? Because by the time they tell you that I'm going to take a new job, it's too late to save them. We should be looking ahead of that and understanding those metrics just like we would if it were a critical customer.
That's great, yeah.
Critical people call.
Yeah.
I'm going to borrow that.
Great tip. So we will do a little bit of Q&A, and I see some questions that have come through. So I'm going to start with one. It says, you mentioned invest early and invest often. How early? A specific company size, install base? So we talk about just start, begin somewhere. What do you guys think about when to really invest in customer success?
I would say, I'm somewhat provocative, but I would say we should be investing in customer success ahead of sales. I mean, that's probably a bold statement to say, but when I think about as early as a company would get started if you think about what ultimately can be a problem for companies is to think about how we actually getting to product market fit, and that customer success manager is that person that is helping the CEO scale, helping the organization scale by having as many customer fit, product market fit conversations as possible to bring that back into the organization and help scale. And in many ways that helps actually then enable and put forward, your very successful sales army. And so, I'm a big fan of seeing companies that actually invest in that role ahead of other functions.
And it really does change the dynamic, and it goes back to your point about having them have a seat at the table early, because that's a very different role than, we've got a lot of customers who may now have questions that, now we've got this mass, and now it's like if we build it, they will come, rather than seeing CSM as the catalyst for growth, right? Very different mindset.
Yeah,
That's right.
I agree completely.
Jennifer, what's your thoughts?
No, I agree. I think those are great points from Catherine's perspective.
Okay, so let's go to another question. I think we probably have time for one more. This one we didn't talk about, but it probably is a good one to talk about as far as lessons learned. So when we talk about upsell, right, the whole carrying quota, what have been some of the lessons learned? We talked compensation, who handles upsell, how does retention versus upsell get managed from a compensation? What are some of the things over the last couple of years has evolved from you when you look at the expansion part of the business versus retention?
Yeah.
I think this is very unique to everyone's business, and to suggest that there's one model that fits all, I know there's not. I think it's a question of scale and specialization, and depending on how complex it is in terms of your sales process, how big of a company you are in terms of actually transacting a renewal or an order, what does that look like? And then from a customer perspective, what does that experience look like in terms of if I'm already talking to the business owner or the key decision maker, and it would be awkward for me to introduce someone they don't know into the conversation. Well, that's very disruptive to how we would want to partner with you. Well, then does it really make sense to introduce somebody new? But I think it's really specific to individual companies where you are in scale. How does your organization work in terms of the complexity of contracts? Because I think once it gets bigger, more complex, then you have to specialize if you're going to scale and move as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Was there a certain way you approached it as you were building out your team?
Well, I'm a little more binary on it. I'm more in the camp that sales takes care of upsells in terms of, closing the deal. But the CSMs are in such a great position to identify upsell opportunities and cross-sell opportunities that's what I'll measure my team on, the ability to identify those and hand them over to sales. I feel like if you put a quota on the CSM team, then you start driving a behavior a little bit differently, right? You start driving more of a sales behavior than a customer success behavior. I think there are specific roles within an organization that need to stay true. Sales is one, contracts is one, a renewal team is one. They're very laser focused on their specific goals. And I think CSMs are better served acting as an influencer or identifier of upsells and cross-sells.
Yeah, great. So I saw this one question come up. I have to ask. We got 2 minutes left, but I thought this was a great one. So, because we've all been there. So, what are best practices for managing up when your boss isn't educated in traditional CS? Because I've never dealt with that ever.
I would say this is a great conference, and I think there's other leaders out there that have embraced concepts, and I think that there's opportunities, whether it's your GM or CEO, to engage with thought leaders, whether it's a very big company, TSIA or other industries where you can actually get outside of you trying to educate, but having very well-known, respected businesses that can actually talk about it, or if it's certainly smaller organizations. There are so many great CEOs out there that really embrace customer success and actually engaging your CEO and making those connections. And I know Gainsight does a great job of actually helping facilitate some of those. And I think that's, certainly I would recommend that path.
Yeah, I think that's we did that too at IBM, and it was more of a show, less tell. And we did the same thing when we brought in other companies that were really doing it and really brokering that CEO to CEO conversation.
Yeah.
Or in the case of mine, it was a CEO, but for others it might be, VP or whoever your boss is. And I do agree. I think bringing parties together, and Gainsight, if you're a Gainsight customer, is really good at identifying who might be some great people to help you there.
I think one thing I'd add to that, because I do think bringing the experts in is definitely important. but bring the data. Make it a data conversation, right?
Yeah.
Show the proof that of the value that the program can bring. Show them the upsells that are being identified. Show them the health scores that are improving. You know, that's the way to have the conversation, is make it very data-driven, which can also drive a funding conversation as well.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank you. Thank you for your great
Thanks,
questions,
everyone.
too.
Thank
That was
you.
wonderful. Appreciate
Great.
it.
Great.
Nice. Thank you, ladies. Nice job. So again, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. We're going to hear about customer success through hypergrowth from Gainsight, Stripe, and Slack. So come back at 3:45, and we'll promptly hit the session. Thank you.